Hello, and welcome to Digital Dealer 2022. My name is George Nenny, and I'd like to introduce Cody Jerry, who's going to be on this webinar with me. And we're going to talk about how to beat independent repair shops in Google search and create more opportunities for the dealership. So I'm going to share my slide deck, and we're going to jump right into this. Okay. Cody, can you see my screen?
I sure can.
I think we're good to go, and let's kick this right off. So our presentation this morning, how to beat independent repair shops on Google. This will be unique if you're going through a number of the different videos for Digital Dealer Spring in Tampa for the conference. Our video is going to be in two parts. So this first session you see is sort of a teaser. Our presentation is a case study in SEO around fixed operations for a live car dealership in the Cleveland area. And we wanted to show you in today's video how we set up this study and how we we'll have this run for a number of months. And then we plan to share the results of this SEO study at Digital Dealer. So you see, we don't really have any results today to share. We are seeing some early indications that the results are going to be pretty compelling. But today we're going to show you how we set up the test. We'll show you about the problem and why we think franchise dealers are losing out today to independent repair shops, and then we'll talk about the setup of the study, and then finally you'll have to tune in either at Digital Dealer or post Digital Dealer to be able to see the results, which we'll be happy to share. So let's dive right into our agenda. I would say today your competitors would not be very happy if they knew the content you were going to be sitting through, because in most every major metro in the US that we've looked at, independent repair shops and big box repair shops are beating the franchise dealer and other dealers in local markets around fixed ops, local Google search. And we'll show you some examples of what we mean. Just to give a little background on who I am and who Cody is and what this is all about. My name is George Nenny. I'm with Generations Digital. We're an independent digital marketing consulting company for the auto industry. And we work with Cody's company, SEMD, on a few mutual clients. And we're getting together on this presentation to show you the work that SEMD did, but I'm presenting this information as an independent consultant so that the findings can be more independent. So Cody Jerry is SEMD guru and expert, SEO guru and expert from a company called SEMD, which we work with on a number of different dealers. We really like them because they have great results. Cody, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Definitely happy to be here.
So hopefully you won't get sick of hearing my voice through this presentation. I'm going to walk through the intro and the kind of setup of the study we did, and then Cody will jump into the real nitty gritty under the hood SEO content, but I think you're going to like it, so we'll jump right in. So the agenda that we'll go through here today, we're going to sort of at least define the problem and show you how and why independent shops are winning. We'll talk about why they're winning. What are the ranking factors in Google that are allowing these businesses to beat other franchise dealers? We'll show you our strategy for success and how we're going to frame up this resolution to this problem for this dealership group. And of course, we've mentioned Klaben Automotive Group is a franchise dealer group in the Northwest Ohio area, specifically in Kent and Warren, Ohio. And we chose them because they're a mutual client of Cody and ours. And we set up this study to help them beat back the independent and the big box repair shops that are beating them in their market. And we're going to show you their before scenario, and so how they look before. Of course, we'll show you all the optimization steps that we did. And then for the after, well, we won't be able to show you the results today, of course, because the study is still running and it'll wrap up in the days leading up to Digital Dealer. We'll then release the results at Digital Dealer, and of course share those with our listening audience as well in a follow-up video. So really excited about this content that we had this morning. So how are independent shops winning? Here's a good example, right? If you go into any major metro in the US and you search for a fixed ops search. So a search might sound like brake repair near me or Ford brake repair Cincinnati, as this example is showing. If you do these sort of searches for branded or non-branded, big box and independent service providers are really dominating GBP, what we call Google Business Profile. And Google Business Profile used to be called Google My Business, Those are your free listings for businesses that exist on Google. It's sort of your online yellow page and white page directory. And today it is the most important secondary websites for dealers, because 100% of the time that you search for a dealer's name, well, of course, you find the Google Business Profile, but 100% of the time you search for a fixed ops service, for a fixed ops product, not mentioning a specific business, oil change near me, brake repair near me. Try it yourself if you've got your smartphone nearby, and you'll find that every time you do a search for that, Google will return multiple Google Business product profile listings. And like this example here, right? So Michael Tires is first, Mr. Goodwrench is second, Quick Lane Cincinnati is third. Keep in mind those first two listings are paid ads. Those are called Google local search ads. And then the third listing is an organic listing. And so you'll see a combination of those in your market. Here's another one. Now we took the OEM brand out of there. Instead of putting Ford or Jeep, now we've just got tire shop near me. And again, you can see, these in this case, this is not Google Business Profile listings, but just normal Google search listing. The independent and the big box retailers are also winning in those normal search results, right? So we've got to figure out a way to battle back. How do we win on Google Business Profile, and how do we win on normal Google organic search results? And maybe how can those two things play together? That's what today's presentation is going to be about. So our strategies for success, we're going to do a combination of Google Business Profile optimization, which I'll talk about. We'll then talk about on-page SEO optimization, as well as off-page optimization. And that's where Cody's going to jump in and share some of the techniques that he implemented for this test. Okay, Google Business Profile ranking factors. What are those ranking factors? Well, there's three. Proximity, is the business close to the person who's searching? Relevance, does the business sell things that the person may be searching for? And prominence, do they have a lot of reviews, and are those high reviews have a high star rating, right? So here's how those break out, right? So here's a typical search: Ford Brake Service, Akron, Ohio, and you can see the search results presented here. And there's those three ranking factors, right? Well, here's the good news. You can't spoof your location. You can't pick your dealership up and easily move it, right? We know that. And so really there's only two that we need to focus on. Relevance, does the business sell things that the person's searching for? And prominence, again, all things being equal, who's got the most reviews? Who's got the highest star ratings, right? These are the two areas we're going to focus the most on. Let's first talk about relevance. So there are a number of different techniques you can implement with Google Business Profile, and we did for Rich Klaben's Klaben Automotive Group, for the Ford Kent store, for their service department. We made sure we chose the right categories. Once we chose those business categories, and when you're building your Google Business Profiles, keep in mind there are 33 fixed ops categories to choose from, and you can only choose 10 categories for your Google Business Profile. You'll have one single primary and then 9 secondary. So you'll have to be somewhat selective with those categories to choose. Once you choose those categories, Google will then, in the next few days, they'll start suggesting some services that you can add for those categories. Go in and choose those proper services. Try to drive reviews with keywords, right? So that's a little more tricky. It's hard enough driving reviews, but where you can and where you can influence that buyer to include keywords in those reviews, those can also help your ranking factor, as well as keywords such as best or service. Those are keywords that are searched for quite a bit. And as you can see in this example, Google indexes those keywords, right? So that's a big deal. If we can influence our reviews to contain keywords, Google will index those keywords and we'll be rewarded for those, as you can see on the screen there. Relevance, choosing the right keywords. So here's an example, right? So for the Ford Klaben store in Kent, Ohio, we made sure we chose the right categories, and so you can see those here. So once we choose those categories, once we start driving those reviews, once we start driving those reviews with keywords, we've really only done half the work, right? We've got our Google Business Profile optimized with the right categories. We've got reviews that are now being driven with the right keywords. After a few days, Google will start suggesting services. We go into our Google Business Profile and we approve or curate some of those services. Then we've got our content ready to go. Now we got to flip over and start doing some traditional SEO work on the website. And Cody help us kind of fill in what that strategy is going to look like.
Absolutely. Number one, it's trying to make sure you actually have relevant content on the website. As much as you would think that your website's set up for success on the service side of things, it tends not to be. So when we first look at a website, we don't typically see oil change content. If we do, it's very sparse. We don't see a lot about tires, don't see a lot about winter tires and winter markets. So this is all content that either you or your SEO team needs to create. And that was the foundation of everything we had. We want to go in, create a sitemap, a full plan of all the different pages and types of content that we needed to rank for, and create strategies for that. And luckily, SEO, although it sounds extremely complicated when you talk about it in general, tends to be really straightforward. It's the utilization of your keywords and phrases in ways that Google wants to see. And that's all based off of how users want to see it. If somebody searches oil change, they expect you to actually use the word oil change right away on the content. And that's how the ranking factors are biased. They want that keyword's up front and center. And that's what we focused on here. Beyond that, it's the citations. Citations, their importance and ranking factors keep on diminishing over time. There was a point in time where you just spammed your citations or basically your name, address, and phone number all over the internet, and you just saw success because nobody else did it. Now it's a lot more competitive. You have to be more selective with what you're doing there, and you can't just spam things. For Klaben, the before results is actually interesting. So when we first took a look at this, when George and I were trying to select who would be a good candidate for this, we were seeing less than 600 impressions per month for the dealership and its different service terms. Just the report I ran before this, we're more than 4 times that amount. And that's a huge increase just in the number of impressions, how relevant we are for different phrases. A lot of these phrases, we weren't on page, at best we're page 2, realistically we're page 3, 4. And it's because we never put a focus on service or focus had always been on sales. And that's where a lot of SEO's focus is. So coming through this, we are starting to get pages as of right now onto page 1 for a bunch of the keywords. We aren't quite ready to show them because we do want to get a number 1 ranking. And we want to get a bunch of them for us to really show you the impact of that. And we want to do it in a way that was actually useful to you. Because if we just went and did our normal SEO, link building, everything else that you associate with SEO, we would rank, but it's not something that's replicatable for the average dealership. They're not going to have the team to be able to build those backlinks and do a lot of the heavy lifting the offsite SEO can do. So some of the things that we're looking at right away: car repair near me. That's a great phrase. Brake repair near me, alternator repair near me, car repair. And then we would go into the Google My Business. So, number 1, categories. Got to make sure your categories are correct. If you don't have that portion of it set up properly, you're always going to struggle. Luckily, we work with George. George has written several books about local SEO and categories you should have associated with your Google My Business. So we're already on the same page with all those. You want to make sure you put pictures in there. The ranking factor of pictures would be so minuscule, but I don't want to take away from it actually being needed to be there. Just aim to beat your competitors. Inside your Google My Business is going to have a report of how many pictures you have versus the average business in your niche. Just make sure you have more than average. I wouldn't recommend getting too complicated. One of them should actually say service in there. It tends to make things a little bit easier if there's some confusion about which one's your main Google My Business listing, and having that one photo that says service is just going to make it a little bit easier. Description, make sure that you actually describe your business. Try to stuff a couple of keywords in there, not like in an obtuse way, but just drop in auto repair, drop in tires, brakes. You don't have to actually go and full on the keyword because the keywords are always awful in this case. Consistently post. Posting is going to be the last portion of this, where we're trying to get it to get to the very top. The posts themselves, the ranking factor, it's really tough to measure, but we've been able to get a little boost in rankings for long tail keywords based off the post content. George just showed, different reviews having impacted the same factor. Use the word best in review, you're more likely to show up for best auto repair. Same thing goes into your posts. Those little factors that are associated with their content are going to have an impact, and we're going to be shifting some things, going after some long tail phrases with that. Responding to reviews, George, you probably have a better idea. I haven't paid attention to this one. Are responses to reviews a ranking factor, or am I just being picky?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, they're not a ranking factor. It's a best practice, so we want to throw it in there. But the 20 reviews and the 20 owner photos, our data has showed us that those are kind of trigger points when we set up a new, let's say, body shop, for instance. It didn't exist before. We set up a new body shop Google Business profile, it's like the birth of a star. You know, it kind of starts off really slow and it gets a little bit of activity. Once you hit that 20 owner photo, not customer photos, but owner photos, and 20 reviews, it just kind of comes to life. I think Google sort of unghosts it, and then you start to get more than your fair share of activity.
Definitely agree with that. The next part is actually, some of the different keywords that we have associated with this. And George actually uses a really good tool for checking these rankings, because when I'm checking it, I'm checking specifically for the city. But George, you use a tool that looks at a grid system, right? What is that?
Yeah, Local Falcon is a new tool that we've been playing with. It shows us where you rank, where a Google Business Profile ranks for a given search query by location. So if you look for, if your goal is to rank for brake repair near me, and your service page is currently ranking, 4 or 5 for that in your market, you could see that. Maybe you're 1 or 2 in your market, but you'd be able to see where you fall off to a 4 or 5. And you're out of the map pack, where you'd be able to maybe drop an ad there, or try to recruit business from that area, because there's need, but you're no longer you're ranking high enough.
And this granular detail is one of the main reasons that we really want to work with George on this project, because I can go and show you a ranking report where if you search from the dealership, you're going to rank number 1, and George is going to fire right back and say, that's fine, but you go 2 blocks down the road and they're not ranking. So we have this really good dynamic where he's, bringing true attention to what's happening, what the impact of this, all the data is. But as we're going through, some of the keywords we're looking at, of course, we're looking for your OEM style keywords: Ford brake repair, city name; make, Ford oil change, city name. Those are pretty prominent searches because people like to go to the main OEM service department a lot of times. Beyond that, though, the main purpose of this is the auto repair near me keywords. And those are the ones where we're trying to see the biggest movement, because those are the ones who are, worse. We're 100 plus in our rankings, and we're moving on down. We're into the top 10 for a bunch of these, and just got to keep going until we get more traffic. For the content, our main focus for that content was going to be oil change, tires, tire rotation, air filters, car batteries. There's more beyond that we could be writing. We kept it more focused initially. If you want to go, you can go after as much as you want to, all the way down to different engine lights that OEM might fire off. There's going to be a lot of search volume there. We've had a couple pages go for 3,000 plus visits per month on that. It's not localized searches at all, so it's something you have to really pay attention to. But just as base content, it's something that you may or may not have on your website. And if you do have it on your website, it's probably not unique content. So we go through, write unique content for all these pages, make sure that it's actually relevant, focus on those keywords, and keep pushing forward. The next content that we're going to be writing is actually the service schedules. So we've done this a bunch in the past, and before SlideShare got bought up by LinkedIn, we actually manipulated search rankings by dropping slideshows of different service schedules into SlideShares because they ranked really well. Did it actually help the dealership? Probably not, but it's one of those things where we could get a couple thousand views on different service schedules, and they're useful to people. I'd like to say we did tons of work to get that to work, but honestly, I just dropped the PDF into a slideshow, uploaded it, and it would rank. But for these ones, we're going to be focusing on 30, 60, 90,000 mile services and getting those pages to rank, get traffic. It's not going to always be local traffic when we show up for these, which is why it's a secondary to our other pages. But incorporating those slideshows, even though SlideShare is now owned by LinkedIn and it doesn't rank as well as it used to, incorporating slideshows can be useful for people, because rather than having a big long list of different services that they're going to be getting at the dealership, they can click through and see what's there. A mobile experience, that was a true mobile experience for service, would be far better than that slideshow. But there's different restrictions. So this website in particular is built on Bootstrap, so it'd be coding all that in Bootstrap, and we just try to minimize that. Basics though, we just kept to the basics. We didn't try to get complicated with our SEO content. You want to have your keyword in the title tag, which is in the back end of any system that you're going to be using in the auto industry. They're going to have a specific section for that title tag. Put a heavy focus on putting the keyword first. Auto repair near me, auto repair Kent, whatever it may be, your city name, make sure it's in the title tag. For local SEO, it's a minor trigger to have the city state in that title tag. The same goes for the H1, which is the largest text on the page. Having it inside of an H1 tag doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better than the largest content on the page. There's been a few different studies in the past where people just removed the H1 tag and just made it the largest text on the page, and it had the same exact impact. So when I design a page, I always put in H1 simply because when we use a lot of these websites, the CSS or the actual style sheet of the website just makes the H1 the largest text on the page. So when we're saying put the H1 at the top of the page, it's just simply because that's going to be the largest text just based off the system that you're going to utilize. Some of the websites might be a little bit different, but for the most part in the auto industry, the title of the page or that H1 is going to be right at the top and the largest. Description. This is the meta description. Its actual ranking factor is very, very minimal. It's all the way down to the point of saying it's essentially useless. However, when you look at it, those keywords that you use inside of the description are going to get bolded. And in doing so, you will likely induce a higher click-through rate. It's the same thing, same functionality they have in Google Ads, and just having that bold text is going to have some benefits. Alt tags and file names. A lot of the websites you're going to utilize are going to change the file name of your images. It's not that big a deal. I mean, Squarespace, a huge platform outside of the industry, they change all the file names. It's not something I would stress about. But those alt tags, when you edit it on different platforms, you're going to want to open up the HTML and actually see what those alt tags are, which is a little bit scary. But it's one of those little factors that your competitors probably aren't going to do. So I would go in there, open up the HTML of that page, which is going to be very, very minimal, and just go and look at the image. It's just, really, really HTML. And the last part, which is probably the most important part of all of this, which again, we held off and created content, got an index, got a ranking. It's this internal linking. So on some platforms, you can actually use different code or short codes to internal link all your pages. The platform we're building on, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have that functionality. So it sounds really complicated in text form, but literally we just have a list of all the services on all these service pages, and all those link over to their appropriate pages. If your page is talking about auto repair, we have a link that says oil change, and it links over to the oil change page. It's not complicated. It's really easy. And here's the example of that. Bottom right, you can see Ford recalls, tire alignment. All those just link over to the different pages we've created. And anything that's not that blue text is just not linked currently. So there's other content that we could be creating that we identified in keyword research, and we'll probably grow by the time we actually do our presentation at Digital Dealer. But this is really basic. I mean, we try to keep it as simple as possible. You can go and actually literally steal this page layout if you wanted to. It's all laid out in what we have, and try to keep it simple. You just want users to be able to get there on mobile, on desktop, and see where they want to go.
And Cody, why does internal linking help? So Google sees that and rewards that as being more relevant?
So there's two factors associated with that. One, every single page on your website has a given amount of authority it can pass to different pages. So when you link one page to another, you're passing a fraction of its authority, like a tiny, tiny amount, onto the next page. And two, that text of that link is going to impact the relevance of that next page. And it actually works the opposite direction. If you have a page about tires and you link away to a completely different tire page, you're actually taking a little bit away of that prominence. So you're saying this page may be about tires, but this other page is also about tires, and creating some confusion with Google. So you want to keep it simple, make sure you keep those together. Citation cleanup, same thing. We kept it simple. The impact of these rankings tends to be much less than they were in the past. Like we used to just go hardcore on citations and just make sure we just dominated all of these. But realistically, it's a lot easier. We listed a few different tools that you could utilize to completely simplify this whole process. Internally, we use Bright Local. We've used all these tools in the past, but just currently, I like Bright Local setup. Basically, we put the dealership in there. We select the citations that we want cleaned up based off of our own research and just audit it to make sure it actually needs cleaning, because sometimes they don't when they find them, and submit it. So that takes about 3 weeks. They completely submit to as many citations as you want, and that cost of that is very minimal. If you compare it to, utilizing an SEO company to do this, you'd be amazed at the difference in cost. Moz, another great tool, only focuses on the top aggregators. So it's only going to look at the first 5 websites, and it's going to make sure you do really, really well in those 5. And the argument of that is those 5 aggregators actually sell their data to the majority of these other companies. So you could be more aggressive and actively trying to get additional citations through Whitespark or Bright Local. But a lot of people are just using Moz because eventually it's going to correct things. The alternative would be if another tool like Yext is causing some confusion, You'd want to make sure that you're not utilizing multiple tools at once. If you're using Yext internally, because you want to be able to update the hours and information of all of your listings at once, don't utilize another tool, just stick with the one. But if you currently aren't using a citation tool, I would recommend Bright Local or White Spark. They're both fantastic tools. For this one, just like the name, address, and phone number, and we went through and we're cleaning up the top 100 citations, which George built the Google My Business for the service department. There's not a whole lot to clean up. It's basically just submitting new stuff. For tracking, there's a few different things we can do. So we love Google Tag Manager. We do probably an obnoxious amount with Google Tag Manager, and George has actually seen a couple of times where events triggered things to cause bounce rates to not show up properly. So it's one of those things we go in, we want to make sure we track as much as possible, pass that data. So, these are the things people are looking at. So set up tracking, make sure you're checking for calls, form fills, all that stuff. And if you currently aren't and need help, then you got to call George, because George has different ways to always get those set up and set up properly. George, you have some sort of tool, don't you? Or
we use Data Studio for
Okay.
reporting. We use Data Studio. We just feed everything into it, so it's free and it's easy to use, and we love it.
And for us, we use Google Analytics, and George's Google Data Studio data when we're on meetings is just fantastic. He always has some of the best questions I've heard that pretty much nobody has ever asked me before. The after results, we have some of the initial after results, which is currently over 2,000 impressions per month. We're still climbing. I'm hoping by the time we actually present at Digital Dealer that we're north of 4,000 or 5,000 impressions per month. There's some long tail keywords that.
No, I'm just kidding.
Ooh, okay, I was like, oh no.
No, I'm just joking. No.
There's lots of long tail keywords that we're just not showing up high enough yet. So we're trying to go after as many as possible. And impressions don't pay the bills though. So we're also trying to generate those clicks and get to the top of the page on for auto repair near me, auto repair, AC repair, all those variations. We're trying to go after as much as we possibly can. If your service department does niche stuff, like work on right-hand drive Jeeps, which every time we get a CDGR client, I always ask if they have right-hand drive Jeeps, because there's this whole other set of keywords that we could be going after, and we haven't encountered someone in years that does it. But we're hoping this just drastically grows and just improves.
Yeah. So we're sorry we don't have results to share with you, but the entire intent of our presentation is to have a big unveiling at Digital Dealer, and yes, so we're seeing results so far that look very good. We've known for years, that Google looks at both Google Business Profile and the website and kind of takes those signals together, but you can't really just use one without the other. And so this is going to be a really unique study that we're going to be anxious to share all the results. And so if you're at the show, we'll share those live. If not, we will fire out a video immediately after. And so for our remote virtual viewers, you'll see those results. And of course, we're always glad to, our contact information will be there, and we're glad to share any other techniques or things that will help you be able to reproduce those results at your store. And of course, we'll have Rich Klaben there. Rich Klaben from the Klaben Auto Group. This will be his first Digital Dealer. He's super excited, and I'm sure first of many Digital Dealers. He was excited to be included, and he'll give kind of a real life view from a dealer owner's perspective of how he's seen these things affect his business. So thank you all for your time and for watching. Cody, thanks for the tag team approach, and I'm looking forward to continuing this study and seeing all the results.
Absolutely. Thank you, George.
All right. Stay tuned, and we hope to see you in Tampa, or we'll see you soon after virtually.